This one I better do with the jabata. Me, I no get time, I did da cover my face, calling.
Reegan.
Hey, Maya.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Reegan Haynes. Everybody, Reegan is my dance teacher. Reegan, you teach Afrofusion dance. What is that?
Afrofusion is a technique. It's a mixture of West African dance mixed with hip-hop, contemporary dance styles, social dance styles of the diaspora. You know, it's all pretty much designed to be fused to give an understanding of culture in dance and arts. And also at the same time give dancers an idea of how to understand their lines, their placement, power, control. So it goes beyond just learning a 5, 6, 7, 8, but I want a dancer to be, you know, completely versatile. And I feel like this style really prepares artists and dancers to be ready for stage, TV, film, and whatever gets kind of thrown at them in the industry, because you can't just kind of know just one thing. You have to know several styles, and when you have a foundation of where the styles come from, I think you're even better prepared. So, yeah.
I like your class because it's like high intensity cardio. You have us jump around. Yeah. I brought 2 friends to the class, and by the end of the class, they're both bent over, sweating.
I did my job.
Yes.
My job. I mean, you know, I want it to be challenging, but, you know, I still try to meet you where you're at.
Yeah, you do.
So, you know, I don't want it to be overwhelming. At the same time, I still want to, you know, give a realistic view, realistic of the intensity that's required, whether you are professional or this is what you want to do on the weekend. You know, I want everyone to have the same experience.
Yeah, I'm a weekend dance warrior.
That's okay. I've seen you grow.
Oh, thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I like jumping up and down. Like, I like the athletics of it, but the remembering the choreography, that's always been my thing.
I know. And I was patient because, you know, I was like, okay, I saw it, but I didn't see it as, you know, something that it was wrong. I saw it as, okay, she just needs to grow in that area. So how do I guide her to truly tap into that, you know, and just kind of hold your hand. And once I held your hand long enough, I was like, okay, now I can yell at her on certain parts because she's tough, she's ready, and still kind of pull back on certain parts where I'm like, okay, she's still growing in that area. So.
Yeah. No, it's not the same as Dance Fit on YouTube. It's much more intense than a YouTube Dance Fit, which is what I've been doing during lockdown when you haven't had classes. It's just Dance Fit on YouTube. There's no one to correct me, and I'm just sort of like flailing everywhere.
Yeah, it's a different experience online. Different experience. It can work. It's just I love that in-person experience. Like, I need to correct some things. I need to make sure your timing is on. I need to, like, look at you in your face and, you know, get feedback on, like, okay, this person feeling it or they're not feeling it, you know, because not everybody feels comfortable expressing how they feel in class. You know, a lot of people have that pressure. So sometimes you may say, are you doing good? They're like, yeah. You know, like, they're not doing good. Let's take it back. You know, and I may not acknowledge that, but I'll sense it.
I found it really interesting. It seems to be a different kind of memory. It's like muscle memory for dancers, but it can't be muscle memory if they're learning new choreography.
It's muscle memory. It's a mixture of muscle memory and physical fitness, of course. But I say, even if it's new choreography, majority of the choreography that you're getting is, if you have a foundation, movement is already familiar to you. So if you're given new choreography, it's going to be movement. It's going to require you to do something that's going to have a movement that is from your foundation. So if I'm giving you choreography that includes a body roll, you just need to remember when you do the body roll, but you know how to do the body roll because you have that foundation. So that's where the muscle memory kicks in, and then you just have to work on, retaining the sequence.
The sequence.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. You have a lot of dancers that are just trying to learn the choreography and the dance moves, but not really understanding foundation. But if you understand foundation, you've already conquered half of the battle, so to speak. That's why people are so adamant in saying getting foundation classes, because they know if you get the foundation first, no matter what new choreography you get, that muscle memory will kick in and you'll know how to handle yourself in that choreography.
Have you ever seen those people who have to train to remember those long sequences of numbers?
As far as
they just remember these numbers for the sake of remembering numbers.
Oh, I haven't seen that personally, but I've heard of it. I think that's a gift.
Really? But it's like dance, though, because it is the sequence. You have to remember this.
It's an art.
Yeah.
It's an art. It's a gift. It's the art. Like, they have their method of doing that. I'm pretty sure there's a training or formula that they have to kind of follow to make it efficient to actually do that. You're not just saying, okay, you on the street, memorize these 72 numbers right now. They're like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can count the 72, but, so I think that's a gift. And with any gift, there's like a formula or a method on how to be efficient, and that's where your training comes in.
Yeah, because the choreography, it's still... And that's the reason I started your class is because my friend was like, you got to come to this class. I come every Friday. And then I go, and then I've never seen her there.
But
She's never come. Yeah. I stayed because I liked it, and I think it's a really good workout, But I love the class, and I love the people. But she never came. Not once.
Really?
In the years.
The one that told you?
The one that told me to come.
Did she already know me?
She was going to the class. She said she was going to the class. So I'm like, okay, I'm at the class.
So she must have been there previously, but...
And then stopped coming as soon as I started going.
Because you were supposed to be there.
It was so funny. I texted her because I was like, hey, I'm at the class. You come? She go, I come every other week. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll see you next week.
No.
Never came. That's interesting. So when you get your dancers, because I've seen you teach new classes of kids, and they're like 18 years old. But they come in as dancers already for the most part. They've been dancing since they were like 7 or 8 or...
I mean, it varies. Everyone has a different experience. Like, I'm a believer of, like, a gift is a gift is a gift, But I've had people that have been dancers since they're 3, and some people that started dancing when they're 13, and some people they're like, hey, I decided to be a professional dancer, like, last week, and they come into class. So it just really varies. There's not one way or just one type of person that comes to class.
That's really interesting because I know, well, for ballet and for like gymnastics, you got to start when you're 6 or 7, probably around the latest to become a professional in it. And you would think for African dance, yeah. Well, Missy Copeland, she was able to do it at 12, but that's so interesting that for Afro dance, you could have started in your 20s.
any dance, not even just anything, not just dance of the diaspora, whether it's Afrofusion, African dance, hip hop, or I don't like to say hip hop all the time because hip hop is a culture. Under hip hop are the elements of the culture, and dance is one of them. So it's just depending on where you are in your life. It is traditionally, I think, I'm not speaking as a ballet person, but I think it is beneficial when you do start that young, because it trains your muscles, it trains your flexibility. And I know the older you get, you have to work a little bit harder for that flexibility. So if you kind of year after year after year from a young age are like training your muscles in your body for that technique, it makes it easier to kind of just progress into the next level, so that by the time you get to a certain age, you're of age to be at a professional status and work.
So What would the training regimen be for one of your dancers if you wanted to say, okay, I'm going to have you dance in my crew. I'm going to get you ready to be an Afrofusion dancer that you're going to put your name on. What is the regimen to train this person?
Well, I don't even like to say that I'm gonna put my name on because it's enough in this industry of, I don't want anyone under my thumb,
Okay.
so to speak. If you want to be a part of my dance company, which is something I would be proud to include someone to do, that's great. I train dancers to be artists, period, whether they dance for me or not. Same regimen, okay? What I do explore first is I want to understand what their intentions are as an artist, as a dancer. And with knowing that, I'll kind of know what styles they need to take, because my class is great, but I may say, hey, get in a traditional West African class. Get in a class over here that, teaches you more grooves, because I'm noticing, even though it's a foundation, they may not have it in this generation. So go take this class over here that has a foundation, that does grooves, It just really, really depends, And then I'll say, okay, who are your mentors? Who do you associate with, I kind of keep my eye on that too, because that can be very influential on people's growth out here as a dancer and as an artist. So once that is all kind of established, because we both know dance is not just physical, it's mental and it's very emotional, and you understand the intention behind it, then I can kind of guide them. Because if I don't know your goals, then, I can be teaching you and it could be going in one ear out the other, because you're not grasping any of it, because you may not have the motivation to, because you never ever intentionally wanted to go the route of being that dancer that knows a certain level of information and knowledge that'll actually get you to where I think you're going.
That's really interesting that you should say that. I haven't seen anyone in your class that I didn't think was serious.
Grateful.
Yeah, and I follow them, and they seem to be professional dancers. On Instagram, I'll follow them, and
Yeah,
I was like, these people are serious.
I think I've made it my business really to use Afrofusion to train artists in the industry. So that when they book a job, when they are released into, I don't want to say released into the wild, so to speak, but when they're released into this industry, then they have a solid foundation physically, mentally. They are prepared, because class is also mental as well. That's where you get your preparation for a lot of different scenarios that you may face out there. So I just say I just attracted a lot of people that, really want to go the distance, and they have similar intentions. I understand, their goals, and I'm able to guide them. But there's no one way to train. I think I'm just describing a way that I think is efficient to training someone to be an artist, regardless of where they go. And as an approach for even with my dance company, if they want to be a part of that, I go through the same process.
Mm-hmm. How many hours a week of dance do you think is typical of a serious dancer? How is their lifestyle? What is a day like to even be a dancer?
In this day and time, I don't know. It really depends. It really depends on your giftings. It really depends on, what your goals are. Because, when I first moved to LA, 2005, I had a membership at a dance studio, had my class card, and I was doing at least 12 classes a week.
Hour and a half classes.
Hour classes.
Hour classes. So that's 12 hours a week.
Yeah,
solid.
it'll be rare classes that may have been an hour and a half, but majority they're all like an hour.
Your class is an hour and a half.
My class is an hour and a half, but when I moved to LA, I was taking classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was taking at least 12 classes a week. So I would be working, and then I would go be in the studio for hours. So I think if you want to say put a number on the hours, then not number on the hours, I say number on the classes. I think, as many classes, be in class every day. Mm-hmm. However, it's about efficiency. Make sure you know why you're taking specific classes.
Yeah.
Understand your strengths, understand the things that you need to work on. Some people call it weaknesses. I'm like, just things that you need to work on, and take classes that address them directly. Because it's very tempting in this industry to maybe take a class because your friends are taking it, you know. And it's easy because it's sociable, it's fun, you're a part of a community, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, it's still business at the end of the day. So you want to make sure you're taking a class that's going to have you prepared for when that audition comes. You're not thinking, dang, I should have been in this class instead, or learned this style instead of hanging out with these folks so that we can go hang out afterwards, you know? So it really depends on, you know, the efficiency and the quality of your training. Because, I mean, hey, you can go home and say you've been dancing in your room. And I've had people that they don't take a lot of classes because they may not have the finances to, but they're at home in front of that mirror just dancing. And dancing comes from a place that's not just people feeding them, you know? Dance is not just something that is just fed to somebody. It has to come from within first before someone else can teach them. You can't, you know, it's like saying, I'm going to teach you to like something. That desire has to grow in you first.
Yeah, well, you can acquire a taste. You know, you can appreciate something.
How long would it last if it's not genuinely something that you want to do on your own without people teaching you or looking at you?
I have no idea. I see some kids who are very, very young, and I'm not sure how much they like skating, but they're gonna skate.
Yeah, because they're of age where it's like, you're gonna do what I want you to do. Until, you know, you say, hey, I really don't want to do this anymore, and I can understand that's what you really mean, and then you'll come out. But it's just the level of discipline that's being grown first.
Yeah.
But, of course, a parent or a mentor can always tell when they're like, okay, he or she is very adamant. They are not feeling this. It would not even be effective to continue.
I'd be like, if someone tried to force me to join a softball team, like, even if I got really good at softball, as soon as I got the chance to quit that team, I would quit that team.
Right.
Because that's not what I do.
Right.
So you kind of touched on it just now, but can anybody be a dancer with enough training, or does it take a special type of person?
I think it takes a person with a very strong desire, a gift to do something, you know, regardless of anyone else having an influence on it, anyone else telling them to do it, you know. It's like that part of yourself that you just know this is what you want to do. And then you have that talent just flows of you just understanding what to do. So I think everyone I think innately has a gift of movement, but not everyone has a desire to have an artistic approach to that movement. So I think the ones that have an artistic approach to that movement to really tell a story and a message are the ones that become dancers.
That's interesting, the story and the message, because that kind of brings us to what we came here to talk about, which is the dancing robots. I sent you this video of a dancing robot, and I was like, wow, that's a really good dancer. So when dance, you know, started, according to the anthropology, it had a lot to do with spiritual practices. So it was, you know, a free-flowing feeling of what you had to go along with the drumming or whatever. Now, it could have been different way, way, way back in the day. I'm not exactly sure. But do you still see that spirituality in modern dance?
I mean, you have to approach it from, I think, a different angle, because I think no matter where you are in the world, like I said, every human has an innate ability for movement. And you look at different cultures, whether you're looking at different cultures in Africa or anywhere, communities, peoples have a certain way of communicating. And people use movement. People use dance and movement to celebrate for weddings, coming of age, you know, different, you know, communicating between villages. In Africa, the drumming is, used to sometimes communicate to communicate between villages. So movement and sound is not just something that, someone just engineered in a studio and was like, okay, we're going to just do this because it sounds nice for entertainment. Movement is a way of life. And people use dance to communicate within their communities, whether to tell stories, to communicate history between generations. So I say it taps into that part of the human experience that's not just on the surface, so to speak.
Well, that's interesting about the robots because it must entirely be on the surface. Well, let me just say, I don't know if robots have souls yet because I was talking about this earlier.
No.
I don't know if humans have souls either.
Yes.
I feel that we do, but I can't say for a fact.
You have a reasoning, you have an emotion, you have a system of reasoning and logic and understanding of yourself to make decisions based on experience and emotion. You have something that has intention. You have something that gives you free will to make a choice.
I feel that is true.
Yes.
But
within the context of talking about a machine that is programmed to mimic.
But don't I mimic you when you go up to the front and you do a dance?
No.
In class, aren't I mimicking you?
No, you're going through your own process. I give you a move. You still don't look like me.
Mm-mm. Well, because I'm not as good. You're way
It's
better than
not
me.
about that, Maya. It's about you have a process. You get the moves, and it processes through your emotion. It processes through your experience. It processes through a different level of understanding. Is I can tell you all day, Maya, fix your arm.
Mm-hmm. But I don't.
Exactly, because you're not programmed to do that.
That's true. I kind of am envious of these robots because
I've seen, I appreciate the advancement of the AI programs, but at the same time, it's still artificial.
You thought that was artificial? We'll play a little bit of the
AI
video.
is artificial intelligence.
But okay.
It's advanced, but at the same time, as someone who's grown up and doing the Running Man, that's not the Running Man. That's a version of what's a machine is programmed to interpret in a way that is within confines of what it can do, but there was no processing.
Because it didn't feel the Running Man? Because when you look at the video, and we'll put the video at the bottom, it looks like it's doing the Running Man. It's doing going through the motions.
It looks like I guess I'm coming from a different perspective because I understand where the Running Man comes from. And I understand the Running Man comes from a history and a culture.
Tell us, please.
So it's just, within the social dances of the hip hop culture, you have the Running Man that came around in the 90s. So I understand the feeling of doing a Running Man within the context of the party and the social scene, how your shoulders move, how your chest is supposed to move, how your head is supposed to move, how the expressions that you have on your face when you move, how you move your body, all of that. So to call something that does not look like a thing the same thing is kind of, it doesn't read accurately for me as a dancer that is a professional in a sense, or someone that understands where it comes from. It's an interpretation and the best effort of what it can do, so to speak, but I'm not going to sit up here and create position 9, 10, 11, and 12 and call it ballet. Ooh. They're going to be like, that's not ballet.
So was your problem with the quality of the Running Man the robot was doing?
It wasn't just the quality. I mean, it's a machine doing an interpretation of a movement that can be recognizable, but just because something is recognized as similar doesn't mean it's always accurate, It's just like when you teach a dancer how to dance in a studio, they can know the moves, but if they are not in touch with the culture and the history, it's going to look different than someone who actually has that foundation of understanding.
So you've been watching dancers for at least 2005 you came out here.
Before that, I was teaching since 2000.
Okay, so you've been watching dancers for 20 years, 21 years.
Yeah.
I won't put a number on it, but you've been watching for a little bit. And so you can look at a dancer and see if they understand what they're doing.
Yeah. I think a lot of choreographers out here can understand it. Now, whether you choose to address it or not, it's totally up to you, but you can tell.
You don't think some people are good at faking? Or
I
just
mean-
like mimicking different things that they've seen? Actors, for example, the first few movies that they do, they'll do their best impression of another actor. And then they'll find themselves and find their own voice.
But you have to look at the intention behind that, though. Like, they're in a constant pursuit. That's why if someone is not really understanding, I'm not like, oh, they don't understand, so they don't get it. It's like, no, that's just where they're at right now. But if they get the understanding, it could change in a matter of weeks. You know? So I think it's just the intention behind it.
When I first sent you that video, what were your initial thoughts?
Of the dancing robots.
Dancing robots.
I looked at it and I was like, it was entertaining to watch for a moment, and I was like, okay, are they really? It still looked robotic, because I'm just looking from a different lens. I'm not looking at it as someone who likes dance and they like to watch movies with dance or whatever. I'm looking at it from someone who studies movement, that studies the art of dance, that studies the art of understanding, you know, that expression. So I'm not looking at it as someone as like, oh, that was an amazing, you know, think of studying something for your lifetime that you love, and someone has a very intelligent way of mimicking it. You're going to be like, okay, I can appreciate what they're doing, but you're going to be like, well, please don't compare that to my 25, 30 years, because no matter how great that is, it still doesn't capture that essence that you bring.
I understand what you're saying, and I personally agree with you, because I have a thing on my channel. People know I'm constantly feuding with AI. I'm like, I'm not happy with the algorithms, but I do understand that, at least for the visual arts, a lot of these computers can make work that is technically better than what I can do. Like for a photograph, for example.
Well, better than what you can do in essence, you know? Like, I've seen people do some amazing, extraordinary things, but they don't have a YouTube channel. But you see, you understand what I'm saying? Is you're seeing an extraordinary thing, but they're not putting up this extraordinary thing and then having an open dialogue with the masters of it. The masters of it.
That's really interesting. I wonder if the masses, most people who are not choreographers, can look at that video and say that's not as good as a human. Could an untrained eye be able to tell the difference? That's where I'm worried.
I think it's all in perspective, because you have some people that will say, oh my gosh, it's amazing, because it's an extraordinary thing to sit up there and program something like that. I'm not taking anything away with, like, the formulas and the science. Like, that's not a small feat. It is pretty extraordinary in what they are doing, you know? But you do have to look at it from different perspectives. You're going to have people that are going to look at it and be like, they're going to be so wowed by that aspect of it being extraordinary that they're not going to think anything beyond how that affects people that actually do that. Because they're going to be, like, overcome and, you know, overwhelmed by the wonder of it, you know? So I think that's the thing that you may be concerned about, is not the fact that people will compare and be like, oh my gosh, it's going to dance better than a human, so to speak. It's just the fact that some people may not have the motivation to look past the wow of what's happening, to even investigate how that affects people that actually do it.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to pop. I'm going to say something that's going to make you very mad right now. But
Really? I don't think so.
okay, so when we closed down, I did a lot of online dance fit, a lot of pop, a lot of K-pop. It was pretty formulaic, but it was entertaining. And K-pop is sort of taking over the world.
No, it's not.
No?
No. It's very influential because it's popular. That's what K-pop is popular. It came from South Korea. It's based on pop culture in South Korea. Anything that's popular, is going to appeal to the masses. Just like whether you're in America or not, whatever's over here that's trendy is taking over the world too. You can say the same thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about pop. A pop artist versus, let's say, a musician. Not to say that some pop artists aren't also very talented musicians,
Right.
but a lot of them have to put their spirit aside to put out something that's
Well,
easily digestible.
yeah, for the masses, it has to appeal to more people. It has to appeal to more people in order to be acceptable. But that's the nature. Like I said, whether you're doing K-pop or you're doing the pop trends in America, in order to maintain the popular genre, you have to appeal to the masses. So you're going to have to break a lot of things down into layman's terms for people that may not know or be overly concerned about anything beyond just the spectacle of a lot of things. just to be real.
Yeah, and I worry that, and I didn't used to worry this, but now I worry that most people don't care more than to just see something cool for a few minutes.
I don't think it's that most people don't care. I mean, it's really easy to say that, but I don't give up on people that easily. It doesn't have that much power. Okay? I think, when you see something extraordinary happen, it's like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting for that. It's always going to be a popular element. It's always going to be trends. The issue is that we just need enough artists and people to be in another genre of creating artistic integrity and going to that level of creating art that may not be acceptable to everybody else, just to maintain that balance. Because you're not going to eliminate pop.
No.
It doesn't even make sense, too, to be quite honest. You just have to maintain the balance. And now when the balance seems to be kind of off, in a sense, and then that's when people notice, and then people say, oh, but that's taking over the world. No, we just got to bring the balance back up, because you can't make people want to know the foundations and be deep. That's just not everyone's desire. You're not going to make,
Yeah.
So it's just bringing the balance back up to where you have people over here that are going to be about pop and trends, and K-pop or whatever they do is going to be what they do, which is fine. 'Cause, I mean, hey, it's fun to watch. They're not knocking it, And then you have the people over here that are like, okay, well, not everyone's going to like this, but you need to know culturally where this is coming from. You need to know what this means. You need to know why we're doing it, because then they create accountability so that the balance maintains. And then when you have things being created in media and masses or whatever, there's a level of integrity and accountability on creators to create work that maintains that balance.
That's really interesting, because I see, not just K-pop, but pop in general, and a lot of the dance fit is that they use the same moves all over the world, and they kind of make it their own. Like the Bollywood will take the same move that we use in American pop, and they'll make it their own. They'll do a little hand thing to make it theirs.
Okay.
And it's really interesting. I feel Bollywood does more of making it theirs than the K-pop that I watch. They do the same moves, but it's very...
Well, Bollywood is a whole... I mean, Bollywood has a lot of influence, but that is a different category that's been around. Like, I love Bollywood.
I love Bollywood.
So I'm not going to even talk too much on that one. I just know, like, no, they're legit.
They are legit. I think it's just that everybody's online right now, so everybody can see everybody's moves, and it's not stealing, it's just borrowing. Like, I like this.
Depends.
Oh. Well, they'll see some moves that we like, and then they'll borrow it, and then I haven't seen much of this in American dance yet. You know that move, that Bollywood move? I haven't seen that. That's like the one thing that we, that doesn't seem to have left Bollywood just yet.
Right.
But I see that people all over the world are looking at the hip hop moves and the American moves, and they just take it and make it their own.
Yeah, hasn't been. I'm not going to even go too far into depth with that, but it's just the structure of culture, and when it comes to anything of the African diaspora, then you have the hip hop culture that's of the African diaspora. Hip hop culture is pretty much the African American experience in America, their response to it. It wasn't really, a strong structure of publishing of the culture, in my opinion, that made other people want to take it. I don't know. It's just when you compare it to other techniques of specifically dance, there hasn't been anyone around to say, you can't do this, you can't do that. I don't think a lot of people took it as seriously. So it made it easy for people to borrow from a culture that wasn't necessarily a culture that they wanted to be a part of, but they liked it.
They liked it. And they do the moves, And I have to say it has helped in some of the classes because I'm familiar with moves, and then I'm like, oh, I know that move from the K-pop video. But then you put it in your class and it's completely different.
Because, it's like highly influenced by Western culture. K-pop is very highly influenced by Western culture. But like I said before, it's, anything that's popular kind of takes, I don't want to say it takes the bare minimum, but it takes what's required to do it. But it does not have to take the culture or the feeling behind it with it. Because,
Yeah, because it just does. It mimics the move.
So it doesn't have the same feeling. It doesn't mean they don't have the same heart to be great and to love it. It's just pop culture doesn't require the need to do it, in a sense. It just kind of needs to be simple, appeal to the masses, be trendy, be fun, be relatable, because it's popular. It's popular. So, but just to clear that up, it's not like people are like malicious all the time, just because they're in the popular genre. It's just, like I said, in my opinion, it's just not a need to dive that deep.
Yeah.
In order to get the same effect within pop culture. So.
No, and it's true with painting too. Like people will be like, this is a great image and I love it. But then, as an artist, I'm like, that isn't anything. That's just a regular picture and then I'll put a wavy line through it. That's, super simple to do. So someone who's, been training in the visual arts their whole lives would look at it and say, well, it's just whatever, this is office art. But then other people would say, no, this is incredible. And at the end of the day, it's, who's selling the most paintings?
Up to people's interpretations a lot of times nowadays.
Yeah. No, I just thought that was really interesting because one of the videos we watched was the BTS video where they brought Spot in. And
that was interesting.
For Hyundai, because the Hyundai bought a controlling share in Boston Dynamics, which is the robot company.
It was interesting to watch as well. It was, yeah. It was like a Spot. He's like a dog, but he's a robot. And it just, I don't know. It was just interesting how they were like literally giving the commands like it was a dog.
We're gonna talk to them
and it's like, I don't know. I'm still processing how that can have long-term effects on how people approach art. It's.
How do you mean? How they approach art or how they approach interaction?
Interaction.
Well,
yeah.
Do you curse at Siri? Some people curse at Siri. Do you curse at Siri?
No, I don't. I don't even have Siri.
Okay. Because some people they won't treat Siri like a person. They won't be polite to Siri. and Siri's a robot,
Yeah, AI. Yeah.
so I just wonder that. How do you treat the robot? If they treat it like a dog because it looks like a dog, it doesn't love you back,
Well,
obviously.
I feel like a human is a human. So people are gonna get emotional whether they're dealing with something that's artificial or not. In my opinion. So I felt like I don't know. It's just I didn't overthink the video. I just kind of saw, okay, they're giving this robot commands and it looks like a robot imitating a dog just doing what it's told. I didn't really think too deep about what's going on because I didn't really feel like it required to think anything of it. Like it was happening so fast. I was just like, oh, and they're just kneeling down and like, oh, okay. I guess that's cute. That's cute. It served the purpose of what it was doing. But yeah, that's my only thought about that specific BTS. It was them giving commands and just kind of showing off what it can do on cue.
So we're projecting because we see four legs and we think it's a dog. You're saying we're just projecting our human feelings onto this robot.
I mean, I'm not saying we're doing it. I'm just saying in that video, it's easy to imagine that because it's designed, if they're saying, hey, this is a robot that's a dog. Okay, it's just like when you're a little kid and you play make-believe. It's not, that doll is not real, but you're going to play that role and it's fun. I think it was fun. I think the video was fun to do. I don't think it was any deeper than that, to be quite honest.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Because we watched another one. Did you watch the one where Adam tested everything? Adam Savage's
Yes,
tested?
I did. Yes, I did.
So they're programming little spots to do the moves.
Yes.
And then we'll link it at the bottom. But basically, to program it, there's 3 bars. It's like editing software. You have arms, you have body, and you have legs. So you can program either one or all 3 to do different things. And then you can set it to a beat, which is like this interval, like a metronome or something like that. Do you ever dance to a metronome?
No.
No. You said very quickly, absolutely not. Why don't you ever dance to a metronome?
I just have to clarify what metronome.
It's just one of those ticking things that holds time. It's just a beat.
No.
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 Is that weird to you? The idea of just dancing to? It's a study.
No, I would need to know. I would need to have a motivation to do it. It's like saying, would you just dance to that? Well, why? What is the goal?
I've only ever seen someone doing it in a movie for training.
That was their goal.
Training.
That was the point. But just to say, hey, I'm gonna do it right now on my off time in between watching this movie or something. I didn't have the motivation to. So, not knocking it. It's not something that I thought to do.
You dance to music, just to clarify, because you love music.
Music, spoken word, anything that has a message and a story. Or is a reason for me to do it. That goes beyond me I'm just going to get up and dance. Well, why? Why do I want to do it? Because I'm experiencing joy, because I want to exercise, or I want to rehearse something, or I just want to hear this new song. It just really depends on the motivation behind it and what I'm trying to say or accomplish as a result of doing it.
When you were first starting to dance, did you do a lot of training? Like you didn't want to do the dance, you just danced to...
I didn't grow up in a dance studio. I've had friends that grew up in it, going to dance studio. They're taking classes every week. I grew up watching music videos. I'm not going to reveal my age at all. Just know I watched The Box, and I watched a lot of music stations when MTV really showed a lot of music videos. And, that pause and slow-mo button on my VCR got to work out. That's how I kind of got the motivation to, that's what kind of just helped activate me wanting to dance. and the stories they would tell with through music videos or through movies. That's what I did. That was for me my training, because for me, going to the dance studio wasn't the thing that I could necessarily do at that time. So I watch music videos. So I think a lot of my motivation, a lot of reason why I move the way I move or why I dance at all comes from me just dancing in my room. Whether there was classes or not, I was going to dance. It didn't matter. And then getting older into my teens, I discovered the world like, oh, okay, I'm going to go take this class. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. But it didn't come from, my motivation didn't come from it being popular or a trend or what other people that I knew doing. I honestly, interestingly enough, I didn't know anybody else personally that danced like that. I knew of people because, of course, you see people, you see recitals and stuff like that. But I didn't know anyone personally that says, oh, I'm going to dance. You want to dance too? No. I just knew that was something that I love to do. So on my own time, I did it.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't grow up with anyone who danced, except, they sent us off to ballet when I was like 8 for a year or two. And that's it. It was just, it was going through the motions.
I think everyone took ballet at one time. I don't know. I took when I was 3. I just remember my pink tutu. That's all I remember. And I still have it in my closet.
You still have it?
It's in my closet at home in D.C. But I'm like, don't get rid of it at all. Ever.
No.
Yeah, it's just so cute and so tiny. And I think I vaguely, recall, but I do remember wearing it. And I was like, yeah, that pink tutu. Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
So as a choreographer who's worked with editing software,
Okay.
which actually makes sense because you started on music videos. So you yourself are more appreciate the production aspect of dance because you have produced a few videos. You've directed some dance videos.
Yeah, recent years, yes. Mm-hmm.
So you have also worked with editing software. What is your reaction to the process of programming spot to dance?
It's interesting because you don't learn dance like that. You don't learn dance or move your arm, move your leg. I mean, it's just a different process. You don't learn to dance. I don't say lift your arm up, Maya, and then lift your right arm, then lift your left leg, and then do that. You have to hear the music first. You have to understand, why are you lifting your arm? You have to understand, okay, what are we doing with this groove? To really understand and approach what I'm telling you to do, you got to understand why. And then the reason why you get a lot of things in the class is because you understand the why. If I didn't explain anything, you eventually get it, but you wouldn't have any connection with it. Just like saying you don't just say go out with your arm. Well, you have to understand I'm swiveling, I'm doing this. And when I'm doing this, my chest is moving, my neck is moving. Oh, what's my face doing? It's not just as simple as moving your arms, moving your legs, and that's it. You move one part of your body, another part is going to be influenced to do something in response to it. So it's interesting, to watch that. However, is very different from how you actually dance. Whether you're a professional dancer or not, you don't move like that.
I was watching them program, and I really thought, man, that would be so easy because it's like rubbing your belly and patting your head at the same time. Sometimes you give us stuff, and you do have us do something with our left leg and our right arm, and it's hard to process all of that at once. Especially, we're doing the dance for the first time. The first day we work on the dance, we usually work on the dance like 3 days or 3 classes, so that we get
2 or 3
it.
classes, yeah.
Yeah,
so you can master it. Yeah.
The first class to me is very much like the spot thing, which is very much this is in
I
play.
won't compare it to that, but I understand what you're saying. It's very I really break it down, to really understand the details of it. What I'm saying is that the commands that they're doing is not details; it's a program. The details have already been worked out before you even looked at the video. because it didn't just lift his leg like that because it told it. It was a whole lot of details and commands within those commands that even enabled it to do that without falling
Mm-hmm.
down on the ground, you know? So I just think I break it down so that you understand how to process the movement so that by the second week, you understand what you're doing.
By the second and third week, it's more listening to the music and more, okay, on this beat and so forth and so on. So by the second and third week, it's definitely different. But for me, that first week, especially when I first started, was very much like left hand here, right hand here. Okay, got to look this way. And kind of copying what, either it be DJ or Tay, whoever's in front of me, copying them, and like mimicking them because they're so good.
Yeah, but you were still, you made that choice to do that.
Yeah, well, because I wasn't in a position to, on my own, understand all this choreography yet.
Right.
So it's like memorizing pi. You can look at pi and you can see that it goes on forever. But some people take the time and they can break down that number sequence like that because they know the techniques
Exactly.
and stuff like that. And so at first I just didn't know them, and it was like learning a different language, completely different language. All the dance stuff that you had to do, and now it's better. Yeah. Now it's better that I've had a chance to go to a lot of classes and I've seen what we're doing and why we're doing it. And by the third class, it's nothing like Spot. I think to myself sometimes, I'm like, are we robots and we don't know it?
No.
I am. That's up in the air for me.
We can bring it back down.
I don't know.
You put in too much work, too much heart, too much desire, too much intention, too much emotion. It just comes from a different place. It's amazing what they're doing technology-wise. It's just nothing can imitate the complexity of what it takes to mentally and emotionally and physically put together the things that we do. Like some of the most revolutionary things in the world don't make sense according to any formula in the world, but they're great ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't program people to do that.
The people in the comments I have a lot of nerds in my comment. They're going to be like, but. So wait for it. To me, I see right now that humans are so much more complex and so much more amazing than robots are right now. Just because all the muscles we have, all the thoughts we can have and the feelings as well. But I'm still like, well, if it keeps going like this, because I showed you this video earlier and we'll put it at the bottom of when we went to the DARPA challenge and it was these robots going through an obstacle course. And this was 5 years ago. And they're just falling all over themselves, trying to just go in front and open a door. And it was just like, we were laughing. And 5 years later, okay, now they're dancing. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not really laughing right now. Because I know that same spot can stop dancing and then go into a village and then be a war drone and then come back out and then dance again. So that's why
but, I understand. Everyone's going to have their opinion. Totally okay with that. I'm just speaking from my perspective. I respect whatever experience people have, okay? Who's programming the robots?
Well, that's the thing.
No, who's programming the robots?
DARPA.
A human.
That's true. For now.
But let that sink in a little bit. I understand. Trust. I get it. I've watched a lot of movies. I love movies. I get it. I'm not oblivious to, the things that can be accomplished technology-wise. Trust. When it comes to science, when it comes to technology, you're talking to someone that is like, I'm one of those people that are like wowed by a lot of things as well. However, if I have to talk from this perspective, I just have to talk from a place that is just truly genuine to what I know and believe, even outside of what I see happening, And so I just encourage people to kind of expand their mind to look from both sides because that's going to be required.
Yeah.
As things do advance, you're going to need that balance.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about it too. It's like, well, maybe they're like this because we made them in our image, or we can't help but make something in our image, which means they respond to commands like we respond to commands. And so that's why they're similar to us in that way. I'm giving them too much credit right now.
I mean, yeah, it's responding to the programs.
Responding and I wonder how much we're responding to the programs too, though. This is just an open question. Like,
it's an open question, but that's a topic for another day.
Okay.
But yeah, that just depends on your experience. You know, what's truly in your heart and your spirit. You know, like I said, that's a conversation for another day. However, it's just if you kind of think too much into something, of course, it can start turning you in a circle, and then that hamster wheel can start feeling like you're going somewhere, and you're like, no, you're just spinning.
All right.
Because you're overthinking something that is really not designed for you to figure out. So I just really think, you know, technology is going to advance. They're going to continue to create amazing things. Just don't lose your head and your heart in the process of it.
Yeah. And like I said, humans are still the most amazing creatures that I've come across so far. I mean, we really are. The fact that I can even, you know, write is amazing. And we're many years away from a robot that can, you know, go from writing to drawing, you know, to back.
I heard what you're saying.
Yeah. So I'm just open to the idea. I'm open to a lot of ideas just in life. Just
don't
open to
just
it.
don't lose yourself in minimizing yourself in the advancement of technology.
Yeah. Well, right now, the AI isn't there yet. They'll ask me, you know, Google correct. They'll be like, "Did you mean this word?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. I didn't."
You like the autocorrect. Like, if you knew, then you would know what I. But
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah,
They're just not there yet.
I understand that part. Like, you should know, but they don't.
It doesn't. It's learning. I was feuding with a robot, an AI before, and that's what somebody put in the comment section. They're like, "Okay, Maya doesn't know the autocorrect yet, but wait for it. Wait for it to learn. Wait for it to pick up." I said, "That's interesting."
Yeah, it's interesting.
And so, well, my next question was, how different is it to how humans learn how to dance? And you said it's nothing like how humans learn to dance.
No, yeah, we kind of addressed that. Yeah, just different process, different attention, just different emotion. It's just what I said before. Just kind of pretty much addressed that.
Yeah, and this is something that I haven't figured out the answer to. But in the video, there's music playing.
I think they laid that on top of that.
They laid it on top of that.
Yeah, that was. Hey, they correct me if I'm not correct. However, just from someone that's watching that video, I immediately was like, "Oh no, that's a song they put in post." So
he wasn't dancing to the music.
Not that I know of, unless they were playing something, you know, there. But I assume if there was music playing, they would feel it. They would feel a need to include that in their discussion.
Because
because that will only drive what they are showing that he can do.
Yeah.
Through a robot.
Because humans dance to music. He dances to a pre-recorded or a predetermined beat, which is...
He dances to a predetermined command.
That takes a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
The humans would say, "Oh, that's the beat," or "That's the rhythm," the beat. But he's a command that says, "I have to finish this in this amount of time."
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not dancing to music. So that's probably the major...
I mean, it's a whole nother process to dance to music. Like I said, you're talking to someone that is in this genre of dance, that loves this art. So I'm not speaking from someone that just likes it and they may say, "Oh yeah, that could be considered that's like me going into someone's professional field and saying, "Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah, that's like this." And you're like, "No, that's not what it is." I understand your approach and your perspective within that context, but that's not truly accurate to someone that's their profession. I understand the approach, but you can't force someone that specializes in something to just say, even though that is not how I process or you're trained to process it in the actual field, I'm just going to go along with it and say, "Yeah, that's right." That doesn't make sense. So.
That's different. That's different than most people who are just watching the video and they don't have any sort of context.
When you listen to the music, even in class, you're thinking about, okay, you listen to the music, and then it's like, okay, well, how does the music make you feel? Okay, is it an emotion that you feel? You know, because however you feel is going to influence how your body moves. Even if you're doing the same thing, it's going to look different based on your emotion. If you're angry, you're happy, you're sad, you know, you're timid, or you're bold or aggressive, you can do the same movement. It's going to look different in each of those emotions.
That's definitely true. Especially angry. You can tell when someone's dancing angry.
Right.
Yeah. No, I love it. Okay. What advantages do humans have over robots? And you kind of touched on it. Do you see us maintaining these dancing advantages?
Yeah. It just requires artists to just understand and respect the times and to just continue to create art to keep that balance, you know, so that people are accountable, the artistic integrity is maintained. So where you have people over here doing this and as wild as great, you still have people over here, you still have historians, you still have people that, you know, make art that really delve into the culture, you know, of what they're doing, you know, the practices within the culture, like, because that's going to influence, you know, that's not artificial. That's a real experience. That's years, that's generations. So I just think if you have people that are committed to continuing that conversation and creating art that reflects that, then there will be a balance that does not get consumed by whatever, you know, technology may come up with. Is like, we respect the amazing advances of it, but it's still a different category. It's still different, you know.
That's
It's
true.
still different than a human experience.
And when they do a lot of CGI dancing, it's still a human dancer.
Yep.
So that you can see the difference. And you can see the difference between a CGI dancing and you can say that's a human. There's something
because it's
human-like.
human. They use a human to do it. I've had dancers, I've had friends that were hired for CGI. So yeah, it's a fun process to look at and to watch because it's literally, you know, someone dancing with all these things hooked up to them.
Those balls at the joints. That's really interesting. I love watching that. And then they'll, you know, make it a dancing bear or whatever, and you can tell there's something there's something human about it.
Yeah, good. My best friend, she was actually one of the characters in the princess movie for Disney, the only black princess
That
movie.
with the frog.
Nice.
Yeah.
And she did the CGI for what was the name of the woman? Oh my gosh, it'll come to me. But if you look it up, it was the older. Don't quote me. Just know she did one of the characters in that movie, and when you watch the movie, you're just like, that's her dancing, completely. But it's animation. You can draw anything. Animation, you can amazing things with animation.
Yeah. And back in the day, they did draw it.
Yeah.
They did draw it. And so I'm trying to think of something that was a dancing thing. I think the first time they did that was a dancing baby that they did for Ally McBeal when they first used that technology. Do you remember that?
I remember the dancing baby. I remember that. I don't know if that was the first one or not.
I'm not really sure, but yeah, but back in the day when they're doing the Disney movies, that used to be hand drawn.
Yeah.
That was hand drawn, and I have to go back and look. Say, does this look more human because it's coming out of somebody's hand? But it's a different process entirely, drawing it by hand and having someone actually moving.
It's a whole different process.
A whole different process.
Yeah, I've encountered some people in the industry, and I'm like, it took years to do what? You're like, okay, that's a lot of patience and skills and talent. That's a gift because I don't know, that process, very extensive.
It's crass.
I respect it.
Yeah. I got to give it to all those old animators. They had the best craft as far as that goes. Like, they knew what they were doing, and they drilled all day, or, you know, They worked all day, so they just got better and better and better and better. So that stuff still holds up. So hats off to them.
Classic.
Do you think? Can you think of any advantages that robots have over humans in dance?
I wouldn't look at it as advantages. I look at it as advantages maybe for the programmer. You can do whatever you wanted to do. That's what I can only thing I can really think of. You know, yeah, is robots don't have to experience the effect of being told no, they didn't get the job.
They're not going to pull a muscle.
No. Yeah, that's pretty much the advantages of that. Yeah, it's just once you kind of strip everything else away that is required of us to handle a talent on art, does it really have a disadvantage in that context? You know?
I saw Spot fall, which was really interesting because
Yeah, I mean, I guess if that's your definition of disadvantage, it's like, oh yeah, if it's not programmed right, it's not going to be able to balance itself. It's going to fall over. It's going to break.
well, we would put our foot out to just stop ourselves from falling, which can be good and which can be bad because I know at least in skating, they're like, you take the fall, don't put your foot out. But you're like, well, I don't want to fall. If I just kind of put my foot out a little bit, I could not fall. But they're like, you won't get the move unless you take these falls, which is kind of holding me back because a lot of these falls, I'm like, I don't know.
I guess it just depends on what what part of artistry that you're in, because you know, as a figure skater, it's a whole different thing. Even dance with that is different. You know, I'm not totally familiar when it comes to like, you know, dancing on ice skates. But I can imagine, you know, it's very legit what you just said. You know, whoever's teaching you understands the body when it's on something like that, when it's on ice skates. So it's not going to have the same, I guess you could say, rules to react if you were like, you know, flat feet.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of them are they're not quite dancing. The best ones are dancing. These are people who are way better than me, but a lot of them get to the top and they're very technically good, but you can tell they don't feel it. Or they're not dancing to the music. They're doing the program, but they're not doing it to the music, which is the difference between dance and anything else. Like, it has to happen to the music.
No, I mean, it has to happen to, it has to be, not that it just has to happen to the music, it has to be a connection to why they're doing what they do. Because you can dance to the music and you're like, oh, feel nothing. Because you're not invested in what the music or the message is saying through the music. So anyone can dance to the music, so to speak. Doesn't mean they're connected.
This would have to be a question for Dr. Donald, actually. My friend, Dr. Donald, he's a psychiatrist.
Yes, I saw some of those episodes, yeah.
I was like, Dr. Donald, can someone who doesn't feel dance to the music? Or are they just going through the motions?
I mean, that can be answered by anybody. You can go through the motions even if you kind of feel it. It just depends on the day that you're having. Don't overthink it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always wondering, because I know I feel, and I know what's going on in my head, but I'm like, I don't know what goes on in anybody else's head, aside from what they tell me. And if I can observe them and say, well, maybe this, maybe that, but it's always in the back of my mind that, you know, they have a completely different perspective than me that I could never even understand.
And that's okay, because vice versa, they could be thinking the same thing about you. It's all up into your interpretation. It's all depending on your intention behind what you're doing, you know, because you feel in different ways. You know, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm just speaking from my own experience. I'm speaking from a dancer that connects to music, that understands what it means to tell my story or tell a story through nonverbal cues, movement. And whether it's a song, spoken word, or just sounds in a room, you know, that dance can be an artistic way of expressing anything that you're feeling, your emotions, your thoughts, anything that's in your heart.
So, my final question, do you think there's ever going to be a day that on an episode of So You Think You Can Dance, a human team versus a robot team, the robot team wins?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that show still on?
I'm not sure.
I think it was. I think it did its final round. Am I like tripping? I'm like, okay, I'll speak to it as if it's still, because I used to follow that show because I have friends on it, so I supported that show. I think the industry needed that show to happen, okay? Because people didn't understand what dancers went through before that show in any context. They didn't really understand, okay? So, say if it is still around, would I see something like that? I'll just say I wouldn't doubt it if someone tried to do that. Just because it's an experiment. You know, people love to experiment to see if something works. Whether it's beneficial to other people or not, people are going to experiment. You know, whether it's be effective or not, it just depends on whatever the goals are. Because someone could see and be like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And you're talking to someone that they don't dance, but they just liked watching it. And then you may talk to someone else who they live and breathe dance all day long. They're like, oh my gosh, like that's totally not fair. You know, it just depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah, and though I'm not sure if So You Think You Can Dance is still on because
You
we
have to
don't.
look that up. Don't quote me. Don't judge.
Their last season was 2019.
I thought so, because I
like a hiatus, so it's probably.
yeah, because I mean, they can't do anything really in person right now, so it's really no point. But they've been going around. They've been around for a while. And I remember the first season. I was one of those people that are on the phone voting. I was definitely I was definitely a supporter of it because it was like, oh my gosh, people actually see dancers, you know, out in the open, go through it and actually hear our thoughts, hear our process, you know. So I appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, they beat us at Jeopardy. I didn't think that robot would beat us at Jeopardy.
Oh,
but
I didn't
he
know
did.
about that. Okay.
That was a few years ago. Yeah. So it's anyone's guess whether or not a robot team could win. So You Think You Could Dance?
It depends on the judging. It does not depend on anything else but the judging and the rules of it. It's such a subjective subject. You really can't say, oh, they would win because of this. Or I could say, no, they could never win because they can't emote emotions the way humans do. Start and end and put a period there. Then you have someone else that's like, but it was so extraordinary and revolutionary that it can actually lift its foot up like that on cue. How do you debate that without it turning into a foolish conversation?
Yeah. And then, of course, there will come a day where they can do tricks that we can't do. Like it could get up and then do a double backflip and then do a dance.
I know people that can do that.
See, you know, some people.
I know a good amount of people that can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It just, you know, just when you have that, just call on the people that know, that do, to join in. Don't just show that and not show the ones that you're kind of, you know, mimicking at its core, you know?
Yeah.
Because humans can do some extraordinary things. I've seen some things that are not shown because the camera's not rolling. And their motivation is not to just always be seen. So you don't always catch it.
Yeah.
You're just kind of seeing what's being put in front of you.
Yeah. I would think that, I don't know how it is for dance. I'm not an expert dancer. I do dance, but I'm not an expert dancer. That, at least for other things, you see some people who are great at athletics. They can do the double backflip. But then when it comes to the dance part, that's not their strong suit, you know, or the flexibility part, that's not their strong suit. But they have the power. And it's very rare to find, from what I've seen, in the same person, that they have the athleticism, and then they have the ability to dance well. It's just one of those things where it's like, it happens. It certainly happens.
Well, dancers are athletes. That's my response. That's part of my response. But it just depends.
Yeah.
It depends. There's people in every category. It really depends. I don't know. I understand what you're saying, though.
Yeah. That at least the robots they'll be able to do that move, and then they'll come back to the dance, and it will look impressive. Whether or not it is impressive. I mean, it's impressive that the programmer was able to do it.
It's impressive within what they've accomplished program-wise, of course. But is it impressive compared to, who they're mimicking at its core? Everyone's going to have their own opinion and interpretation of that conversation,
Yeah. No, definitely. And we've just sort of started this robot dance thing. This is the past few years they've been able to do this, You give it some time, it's going to be a discussion that people, keep having for every art. It's going to be like, okay, well, can the AI do it better? Can the AI do it better?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Especially
it's going
music.
to be interesting. So, yeah. Yeah, I just hope artists don't lose sight and don't lose heart and continue doing what they're doing. Because, everyone can speculate on where it's leading to, but you really can't focus on that and still focus on doing what you need to do right now, because it can easily make, someone lose themselves or get discouraged. Like, why try?
Mm-hmm. Hey, that's where I am.
Why not? Sometimes people do things to discourage you not to do it. No. So just stay doing what you need to do and just let things balance itself out. That's going to be over here. Just like with pop culture, it's always going to be pop.
Mm-hmm.
Just balance it out. Make sure you have over here the people that make people accountable, to kind of say, hey, you enjoy that over here. Just remember, there's a foundation and a culture and a story that goes a little deeper than that. So that's fine. That's fun. But take a little time out to learn a little bit more. We just want to keep the balance of accountability for people. We just want people to continue to learn more. We don't want people to stop learning. If you stop learning, then that's when, people can get discouraged and think, this is how it's going to be.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I feel that, one, a lot of people are not learning about the arts the way they should, and therefore they don't appreciate when they see real art, when they see a real artist do something. And that's nobody's fault except their childhood education. Their parents didn't take them to the museum, didn't take them to the theater, so maybe they don't appreciate art.
It's just experience. His attention span has gotten shorter over the years. So it's just a different system and a different way of, drawing people in,
Mm-hmm.
I've had this conversation with people before when it comes to, dancers that may not know certain things. And it's like, you can either complain about it or you can figure out a new way to draw them in to educate. Because complaining is not going to get anybody anywhere.
How would you suggest to draw the public in to appreciate a dancing human instead of a dancing robot?
Just continue doing art, and you can. There's new ways people are dancing and incorporating their version of technology into what they're doing. Is just taking your art to another level to where people can relate to what you're doing in this current time. There's different ways of using technology to enhance your stage show or your movie or your production. And then once you get them in the seats, it's like, hey, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to express. And it's okay for you to like that and like this. You can appreciate both.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's ways of doing it, but yeah, don't lose hope on that. It's great. It's great what's going on. Just know that you know, there's ways to still be an artist that preserves that integrity and educates the masses. And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that will listen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just some people just don't know to listen because they just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
If someone doesn't know that there's information that goes deeper, they're not going to know to look for it.
Mm.
So it can be interpreted as they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to a lot of people, whether students or just other individuals, that they may have just not known a certain information or knowledge, and when I presented to them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just didn't know," and they're sitting there listening and they're absorbing it and they're getting an appreciation, but they didn't even know to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
So
true.
it's not always most people don't want to know. It's just maybe it's just not a trend for people to want to look in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have enough people saying, hey, just one person at a time saying, hey, listen to me for a second, or hey, let me present this thought.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes one person. Don't think about the masses, because I'm grateful that, if one person in my class or one person that I may work with gets some information, then I'm like, hey, they're going to talk to whoever. And if they never do, at least that one person knows.
Yeah.
And you never know what that person's assignment is to do the next revolutionary thing that could change the world. And because I spoke to them or you spoke to them, even though it's one person, they were put in a position of influence. You just never know, Maya. So don't think of trying to correct the whole picture. Just kind of stay focused on what's in front of you personally and let that reach out and expand other people. But you can, don't get focused on trying to do too much. It doesn't even make sense to do that,
Yeah, that's very optimistic. That's a very optimistic way to end things. I'm glad that's how you feel. Because you've been out here longer than me, so you've seen more. And for you to say, I've seen this, and I'm still optimistic, that gives me hope.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I hope anyone who watches this, just understands the heart behind what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all that counts.
Wonderful. Where can people find you?
They can find me. My website is rmhmovement.com. Instagram, RMH Movement. Vimeo, RMH Movement. Anything online, RMH Movement.
Okay. We're going to link it all at the bottom so people can see exactly where to find you if they're interested in learning more about the culture, or if they're interested in learning more about dance, because I feel a lot of people have not been exposed.
Yeah, and as far as culture is concerned, that's a whole another conversation. That's a lot, and just to give integrity and to that and respect to that, that's a separate conversation. That's a long instruction. I don't want to miss any details when it comes to culture, especially as it pertains to West African culture. So,
Thank you, Reegan. Thank you so much for being here.
thank you for having me, Maya. I'm excited that I'm actually here to share my thoughts. So, thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. They're going to love this because we've all seen that dancing robot video. We're like, what is this? Is this going to be in my living room?
Ooh,
Maybe.
yeah. Well, to each his own.
It's going to be next to the Roomba. It's going to be dancing around the Roomba that we all...
That's hilarious, that Roomba. Anyway, okay.
Well, thank you, Reegan.
Thank you so much, Maya. I appreciate you.
Everybody, Reegan Haynes, RMH Movement.
Thank you. Appreciate you.